Hey, right now, as you're sitting there, maybe with your coffee in hand or just taking a break after checking on your garden this morning, the soil right under your feet, in that backyard bed you've been tending, or even the little patch beside your tomatoes or herbs, is quietly generating electricity. I'm serious. Every handful of dirt has bacteria hard at work breaking down bits of organic matter. And when they do that, they release electrons. It's been happening under every forest floor, every lawn, every garden since long before any of us were here. And for almost 2 centuries, there's been one simple copper shape that knows exactly how to catch all that energy and turn the ground itself into something you can actually use. A coil. $3 worth of wire from any hardware store. 10 minutes to build. Push it into the ground beside your plants, and the soil starts acting like a living battery. No grid, no fuel, no monthly bills, no bags of fertilizer you have to keep buying every season. I know what you're thinking right now. If this is real, why haven't I heard about it before? That's exactly why we're here today. To dig up something that's been buried for way too long. Let me take you back so you can see it for yourself, step by step, the way it actually unfolded, because once you hear the whole story, you'll understand why this could quietly change how you grow things forever. The story starts in 1841 with a clockmaker in a hole in the ground. Alexander Bain was a Scottish clockmaker with a problem most of us can relate to. He wanted to build a clock that never needed winding. His solution was radical for the time. He took a plate of zinc and a plate of copper, buried them about a yard apart in damp ground, and connected them with a wire. The zinc, being more reactive, shed electrons spontaneously. Those electrons flowed through the wire to the copper, producing a steady, direct current. Below ground, the moist soil carried charged ions between the plates to complete the circuit. Every dissolved mineral, every trace of salt, every organic acid in the groundwater became part of the electrolyte. The soil wasn't just holding the metals in place, it was an active participant in the reaction. Bain used that current to power the world's first electric clock. British patent number 8763 describes every detail. The device ran for months with no winding, no refilling, and no maintenance at all. Imagine what that must have felt like for him. Standing there in the damp Scottish soil, watching his clock keep perfect time because the earth itself was doing the work. No more daily chore, just steady power from the ground. Within years, telegraph companies across Britain adopted the same principle. They buried copper and zinc plates beneath relay stations and used the actual earth as the return conductor for electrical signals. The earth return method slashed the cost of telegraph wire by cutting the copper needed in half. Stations along the Edinburgh to Glasgow Railway ran on current drawn straight from the ground. Engineers even documented that aligning the plates north to south boosted output. Damp soil worked best. Dry ground killed the current completely. But when conditions were right, these earth batteries just kept humming along for months unattended. The ground was alive with electricity, and Victorian engineers were quietly using it to connect an empire. Now here's the detail that should have launched an agricultural revolution, but somehow got buried right along with the plates. Telegraph workers and local farmers started noticing something strange. The grass growing directly above those buried metals looked completely different. Darker, thicker, taller. You could spot the lush green stripe from across the field. One station master in Yorkshire pointed out this vibrant strip running right along a buried return line. On either side, ordinary, pale grass, nothing special. Right on top of the current? It looked like it belonged in a different climate altogether. The pattern repeated wherever the ground was carrying current between 2 buried metals. Nobody published a scientific paper. Nobody called in researchers. The observation just passed by word of mouth among the workers and then quietly disappeared. That silence lasted nearly a century. But across the English Channel in France, one man was paying very close attention to exactly this kind of observation. His name was Justin Christoflo. Between 1910 and 1940, he developed what he called Electroculture. His main device was an atmospheric antenna, a tall wooden post topped with a collector made of copper and zinc wires. A cable ran down into the soil. This thing captured electricity from the air itself, from wind, rain, in temperature swings between day and night, and fed a gentle but continuous current straight into the ground. Farmers in the wine-growing regions put it to the test from 1922 to 1927. The results were documented with photographs, sworn testimonies from the farmers themselves, and careful field measurements. Harvests doubled. Crops grew 2 to 3 times faster. Potatoes reached 6 foot 3 inches tall, each carrying 30 to 35 huge tubers weighing 1 to 2 pounds apiece. Carrots grew to 19 inches long. There was this old pear tree that was basically dying with almost no bark left, but after the antenna it came back fully and started producing pears up to a pound each. All of this with no manure, no pesticides, no fertilizer at all. De Christoflo filed a Swiss patent in 1925 and a French one in 1934. Then, the fertilizer industry hit back hard. They hauled him into court. Despite all the photographic evidence and dozens of sworn statements from farmers, he had to defend himself against an industry whose profits were taking a serious hit from a device that cost almost nothing and never wore out. In the end, the word electroculture was effectively erased from French agricultural literature. His patents survived. The results survived. But his reputation was dragged through the mud. While Christoflo was fighting those lawsuits in France, a Russian-born engineer living in Paris named Georges Lakhovsky was proving something even more startling about copper and living things. In December 1924, he deliberately infected 10 geranium plants with a bacterium that causes tumors, the plant version of cancer. Once all 10 had developed tumors, he took one single loop of bare copper wire, about 12 inches across, ends left open and not touching, and placed it around one of the infected plants. It was supported by a small insulating stake. No power, no battery, just an open copper ring. Within 3 weeks, the tumors on that one plant fell off. Within 2 months, the plant was thriving again. The other 9 untreated plants died within 30 days. He presented the results to the French Academy of Sciences in 1928, sponsored by a prominent professor. Researchers at the National School of Agriculture replicated it. The same open copper ring extended growing seasons, boosted potato yields, and sped up germination for every seed type they tested. Lakhovsky explained it this way: every living cell is like a tiny oscillating circuit, a microscopic radio transmitter and receiver. The copper ring acted as an antenna tuned to the plant's own resonant frequency. It captured atmospheric energy and reinforced the cell's healthy signal, overwhelming the weaker oscillations of the disease bacteria. The plant didn't fight the cancer. The copper ring let it vibrate the cancer right out of existence. A 50-cent piece of wire curing plant cancer right in front of the top scientific body in France. The copper bracelet trend that swept the 1950s as an arthritis remedy was a stripped-down version of this research. The bracelet only works if the ring is open. A closed ring does nothing. Now let's cross the ocean to Murray, Kentucky. Nathan Beverly Stubblefield was a self-taught electrician, a practical farmer, and a fruit grower. In 1898, he patented a device that took the earth battery idea and wound it into a coil. Copper wire and iron wire layered around an iron core. The copper was insulated, the iron was bare. When the coil was moistened by the soil, the galvanic reaction between the dissimilar metals created a primary current. Because it was wound into a solenoid shape, it also induced a secondary current through electromagnetic induction. One device, 2 kinds of electricity, all from nothing but soil moisture. United States Patent number 600,457. The Patent Office called it an electrical battery. Stubblefield called it a receiver. He said it was intercepting electrical energy already flowing through the ground. He buried those coils in damp soil near the roots of his trees on the farm. His son Bernard later swore the coils powered arc lamps that hung in the trees and burned all night. No grid, no fuel, no connecting wires. The farm was miles from the nearest electrical supply. Bernard said his father was meticulous about placement. The coils didn't work equally everywhere. He had a method to find the spots where natural ground currents were strongest, often near rock outcrops, evergreen trees, or flowing springs. On Christmas Eve, 1901, a group of children at his home heard Santa Claus speaking through a receiver with no wires, months before Marconi sent his first click across the Atlantic. In 1902, he demonstrated voice transmission from a moving steamboat on the Potomac River to the shore in Washington, D.C. Scientific American covered it. Then paranoia set in. He refused to commercialize, turned down big offers, became a recluse in a crude shack near Murray, surrounded by warning signs and his buried coils. On March 28, 1928, they found him starved to death. The man who transmitted human voice through the ground before radio officially existed died alone and forgotten. In 1991, the governor of Kentucky officially proclaimed him the true inventor of radio. So now all these threads, Bain's plates, the telegraph earth returns, Christoflow's antennas, Lakhovsky's rings, Stubblefield's coils, they all point to the same truth. The ground itself is electrically alive. And in 2024, at Northwestern University proved it with modern lab gear. They built a dirt-powered fuel cell the size of a paperback book. Soil bacteria donate electrons as they eat organic matter. The device generated 68 times more power than it needed to run its sensors and transmit data wirelessly. The lead researcher said, as long as there's organic carbon in the soil, this thing could theoretically run forever. That's not hype, that's a published paper. The dirt beneath your garden beds is not inert. It's electrically active. It always has been. But why has none of this ever shown up in an agriculture textbook? Simple. In 1909, Fritz Haber and Carl Bosch figured out how to make synthetic fertilizer cheap and at scale. By 1945, American farmers were spending $300 million a year on it. By 1975, that number passed $3 billion. The industry that sells you something new every season had zero interest in a system that costs $3, lasts decades, and gets stronger the longer it sits in the ground. The British Electrical Committee spent 20 years documenting electrical yield gains, then sealed every report in 1936 and quietly dissolved. Academic citations for Electroculture dropped over 90%. No conspiracy memo required. The market simply rewarded the consumable over the permanent. But here's what that means for you right now, in your own garden. If you're a backyard grower who's tired of buying bag after bag of toxic fertilizer just to keep things alive, I put together a free zero-harvest blueprint for you. It shows 7 zero-cost fertilizers that actually outperform the big commercial stuff, plus the lazy no-dig method that basically ends weeding forever. One reader, Dan, tried the fertilizer trick indoors, and his tomatoes grew twice the size of his neighbors. The blueprint's completely free. Grab it right now. First link in the description or scan the QR on screen. Takes 3 seconds. Over the next video, part 2, I'm going to walk you through the exact copper system you can build in your own garden. The atmospheric coil antenna, the buried earth battery, the Lakhovsky ring around each plant. How everything works together so your soil literally becomes a self-feeding, self-watering, self-charging battery that gets richer every single season. You'll see why dead soil can come back to life, and why a $3 piece of copper wire might be the most powerful thing sitting in your garden right now. I'll see you in part 2.